So this is more advice and more of a recording for people that are struggling to lose fat, to lose weight in certain regards. I just wanted to kind of highlight the brief struggles that some of the people face and the reasons why they face those. So here I want to kind of I want to highlight four different hormones, and the fourth one is different for males and females. So these hormones are key in terms of body composition, how fat is stored, and basically how your body kind of utilizes energy sources within the system. And the first most important hormone is insulin. Insulin is primarily generated whenever the body is oxidizing carbohydrates or any other forms of food in general. But a majority of the insulin spikes or an increase in insulin is seen typically from carb ingestion. So people that consume a lot of carbohydrates would typically tend to have a higher insulin level as compared to others. And it also kind of depends on what kind of carbohydrates you're consuming, right? One type of carbohydrate is the simple carbs that we talk about in the community. So the simple carbs are more like sugars, or you have your high fructose corn syrup. These are very quickly used up by the body, but also they cause like massive insulin spikes and then crashes followed by that. And so that is the excessive energy that you feel even when you ingest energy drinks to a certain level. And then there are slow digesting carbs that have more of a fiber base. These would be along the lines of, say, bananas, fruits, vegetables. And so when we look at carbohydrates in general, the slower digesting ones are typically better for your insulin as compared to stuff that actually digests a lot faster or is used up a lot faster by your body. The second most important hormone is growth hormone. Now, interestingly, growth hormone and insulin are inversely proportional. So what this means is the more insulin you have, the lower your growth hormone levels will be in your body, and vice versa. The more growth hormone you have, the lesser the insulin would be at that point of time. Now, the reason why I say growth hormone is because this is when we go through puberty, when we go through certain phases in our life as we're growing up, we will see that typically the body will grow when there'll be growth spurts. That's where its name comes from, is the growth hormone. So if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to lose fat, growth hormone is key. And the more you can regulate it, the better you can control your body composition. And by body composition, I mean more like fat percentages, amount of muscle that you have on your skeletal frame, so on and so forth. The third hormone that I want to be talking about is leptin. Leptin is important in terms of understanding, how fat storage happens within the body. You'll typically observe that for certain individuals, based off of where these stores are, some people store fat around the midsection, some people store it more around the upper shoulders, some more around the hips. And this kind of segues because you'll see that in women and males, fat is stored differently. For women, it'll be stored closer to the breast region, and for males, it would typically be stored closer to the lower, the lower hips. And so when we look at leptin levels, this particular hormone determines where your fat storage is basically taking place. And the fourth hormone, as I mentioned earlier, which brings me to, is kind of different for males and females, but I want to talk about testosterone. Testosterone is really, really important. Believe it or not, especially for males, is one of the most, if not the most important hormones for males. Similarly, for females, it has a very significant impact on body compositions and just like overall well-being in general and health. for individuals. So testosterone is kind of pre-linked in terms of when we look at things such as your muscle mass, when we look at your longevity, when we look at things such as your body fat composition, growth hormone and testosterone are things that really do impact it in a positive or negative manner depending on what you do with it. So now, interestingly enough, all four of these hormones kind of depend primarily. It's more of a catch-22 situation, and bear with me on this. So the catch-22 situation here is that, depending on your body composition or your pre-existing one, say, for example, you have a lot of fat on your body, that will cause aromatization of your testosterone, and it'll cause it to be converted to estrogen. Estrogen for males will cause increase in fat storage. The same way you see people complaining about chest fat, basically man boobs, if you have to look at the slang term. And then you have women that would say that they're starting to develop more of a secondary sexual characteristic, wherein they'll kind of start to generate more of a mustache, or they'll generate more body hair. So these, like, the catch-22 here is more along the lines of, like, the more fat you have, the less testosterone you have, and it's like a vicious cycle. The lesser testosterone you'll have, the more fat you'll have, the lesser muscle mass you have. So, and as a result of this, the more muscles you have, keep in mind, it also is, your muscles are a way for your body to store glycogen. Glycose, and glucose are kind of interrelated. And so when we look at blood sugar, when we look at body fat, we look at blood sugar, and we look at glucose, we realize that the more muscles you have, the more places there are for your body to kind of store that blood sugar. But if you're not that muscular and you have a lot of blood sugar going around, your body is going to find it very hard and difficult to kind of store that. And so that's why when we look at things such as body compositions, it's key. Either you increase the amount of muscle you have, or you reduce the amount of fat you have, or try to do both of them at the same point of time. There are ways in which both of them can be regulated, and you can shift this balance either to and fro, depending on what your priorities are in terms of your fitness journey and whatever makes you feel happier in life. And so these four hormones could be key between, there are a lot of studies that have been done that will kind of go and show you in terms of, how a body responds to these hormones. There have been cases wherein people have gone on extreme calorific restriction diets, and even though they have low calories, they have not been able to burn a lot of fat. And the reason for that is because the insulin levels are very high, or exceptionally high. So these are all important factors when we consider the overall and overarching theme about body composition, fat loss, and weight in general. So in my next few podcasts, I would be covering more along the lines of, how do you regulate these. I'm going to kind of dive deeper into the causes, the effects, and some natural compounds or natural techniques that can help you kind of regulate these in a better manner, and kind of flip that switch. But yeah, thank you for listening.